Good morning. This is Liam O'Grady here, and I'm going to talk about everything superheroes today. But first, I've got a special interview with Liam Burke, who is a Swinburne University course director, and Kate Moxon. They're both going to go through the superhero movies and do they think they've overstayed their welcome in pop culture. Point 7. So at the moment, I'm joined by Liam Burke, who is a media course director at Swinburne University of Technology, on the phone, and I'm also joined by Kate Moxon. Sorry, one sec. Yes. So we currently live in a world full of superhero movies. Everything now, superhero movies. Actually, all the movies I go see myself are superhero movies, which leads to a big problem. Are we going to start overseeing our welcome on superhero movies? I'll start off with you, Liam, if you can hear me.
Okay.
Have you seen the newest movie at the moment, Suicide Squad?
Yes, I've seen Suicide Squad. I think it's the fifth or sixth big superhero movie so far this year.
Yep. Kate, have you seen Suicide Squad?
I haven't, no.
No. Liam, what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was a bit chaotic. It was DC Comics, which was associated with Batman and Superman. They're endeavoring through their corporate partner, Warner Brothers, to catch up to Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A couple of months ago, people saw Batman vs. Superman. Suicide Squad is the latest effort to create a cinematic universe, a transmedia story for these characters. And I think in endeavoring to put so much on screen, it was chaotic. There were some interesting elements. There were some not so interesting elements. There were some, I would say, borderline offensive elements. But it was a mixed bag.
I couldn't agree more. Which leads me to my next question. Now, if you've both seen the slate for 2020, there's 9 Marvel movies and 10 DC movies, plus you got the extra Fox movies, but as far as we know now, there's only one being confirmed. Do you think us as a public will start getting tired of it? Kate, I'll ask you first.
Reason shouldn't go the same way as any other genre. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I don't reckon there's any reason it shouldn't go the same way as any other genre that's gone through the cinema. Everything has, a half-life, and eventually we move on from it.
Liam, do you think we're going to start getting tired of superhero movies soon?
Yeah, I think as Kate said, it's inevitable that you reach a saturation point. The audience becomes familiar, arguably over-familiar, with these characters, with these types of stories, and become tired and cliche. The clearest evidence of that most recently was the success of Deadpool, which was a superhero parody. And parodies and satires only really are successful when the audience has become familiar, arguably tired of a genre. And so inevitably it will go the way of the Western, the musical, and many other genres before it go through a period of decline. Might come back in 10, 20 years, might stay quiet like the Western has since the 70s.
You just answered my next question. I was going to ask, do you think superhero movies are going to become like old westerns and slowly die out?
Yeah, I reckon that I can see certainly some superhero movies kind of burning themselves out. They kind of try to top each other. Like every movie that comes out, they try to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought Batman vs. Superman kind of suffered from that kind of thing, where that end fight was just so overwhelming that you lose all frame of reference for it and it becomes meaningless.
Yeah, that's what I personally, when I watched Batman vs Superman, I thought the exact same thing. I thought it seemed too rushed, for my opinion. Which also makes me think, with DC struggling to get off its feet, do you guys think Marvel is one bad movie away from the beginning of their decline?
I don't know. I mean, DC's kind of been struggling to get off their feet for the last 16 years, haven't they? And Marvel's been just going and going and going and bringing out still more successful things.
Marvel haven't had a unqualified disaster yet, either critically or financially. They've had some films that were less successful, Ant-Man, some of the sequels, Thor 2 and so on. But the benefit of it being a transmedia universe is, even if the movies decline in a couple of years' time, and they might, and they probably will in fact, another platform can take its place. So we're seeing some popular shows on Netflix, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, upcoming. We've got Luke Cage later next month. So even if there was a decline in the Marvel Cinematic Universe of films, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is actually greater than films. It's greater than TV. It's greater than comics at this point. And so, something will step in a couple of years, and that will be the driving platform for these, characters who've enjoyed 75 years plus of history at this point.
Yeah, I can see that. One thing I've noticed by watching superhero movies, I personally think, in my opinion, that they're all, so many together. Like, that's the reason why Star Wars and Star Trek is so popular. They take a 10-year break between films. You got the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and now the sequel trilogy, 10, 20 years apart, which gives the fans a chance to relax. The issue with the Marvel and DC universe at the moment, they're all in one big, 3 to 5 year gaps. You don't really have a chance to miss superhero movies.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
I,
do you want to take that, Kate?
yeah, I reckon it's we're here now because in the 80s there were all those really huge explosive action movies with cops, and then it started to get more into the supernatural, and then the only way they could escalate it from that, I think, was superheroes. And I reckon it's probably going to be cyclical. We're going to drop back to something a little bit more relaxed in the cinema and more realistic, rather than just going with superheroes, because there's really no escalation. You can go from there.
Yeah, it is all cyclical. I mean, certainly this kind of vigilante archetype goes from the Western through the cop films like Dirty Harry and so on, up to the superhero today. It's a similar archetype, and perhaps the decline of the superhero will allow the Western to re-emerge, because there still might be that appetite for that kind of gunfighter type figure, but perhaps in a more realistic, historically based setting. I mean, it's difficult to anticipate, but it's hard to imagine a time in which superheroes as character types aren't around, but what format that will be, whether it's video games, live action theatre, mobile phone apps, who knows what that will look like.
That is true, because everywhere you look, there is superheroes. As far as I know, in Victoria, you have Comic-Con and Supernova, which is very superhero based and also comic book based. But you also have the animation movies, the TV shows, the cartoon TV shows, comic books, video games, movies. They are everywhere, and I personally, I don't think they'll go away anytime soon, as in like disappear. But I think that maybe in 5 years' time, especially with Marvel, once this new Avengers movie finishes, and people like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth all go, and they have to build a new cast, people will probably start losing interest.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason that people go to those movies is to see the same thing that they've seen before. I mean, different but the same. They want to see faces that they're familiar with, and if like an actor change would probably not go over well with an audience.
And there's also an attempt on the part of Marvel. You can see now with films like Doctor Strange coming out in a couple of months next year, films like Black Panther, to diversify the superhero genre within the limits of the genre, what a superhero can be. That's both in terms of bringing kind of supernatural content with characters like Doctor Strange, or just to diversify who is the superhero. So we'll see more female superheroes, we'll see more people of color, and that's a short-term solution. I mean, as Kate said, genres are all about sameness and difference, standardization and differentiation. We want it to be like the last one, but somehow different. And there's only so much innovation you can do within the strict genre conventions of any type of film. And that's also true of the superhero. So there's only so much room for innovation before, maybe you have that sort of break or gap that you talked about earlier, where they have a 10-year break and no one makes a superhero film like they didn't really in the 90s. And they kind of bring them back in a meaningful way 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah. Well, the difference between superhero movies now and in the 90s, they're much better quality, especially with CGI and special effects. Like, I think, have you seen Batman and Robin, Kate?
Yeah.
It was a very campy, very goofy, very cartoonish type movie.
Yeah.
So, for the superhero movies now, that's a good thing with them. They're much better movies, as in, visual and things to watch. They're better than they were back in the past. I think the reason why Marvel is doing so much better than DC, apart from the fact that they started earlier, is the fact that they're introducing genres in their movie, like you guys have said. Like Doctor Strange is going to be very sci-fi, a bit like Inception. You've had space dramas, you have heist films, team-up movies, where they're not just a casual get your powers, fight the bad guy, beat the bad guy, get the girl type of superhero movie. Where DC still haven't got past the fact of just being a normal superhero movie yet.
Yeah, DC haven't got the human element that Marvel have, I find. With Marvel movies, they always have something that kind of connects you to the characters. Even if they're superhuman, they face some kind of problem that the average person faces as well. And again, with the CGI that you mentioned, that's kind of a double-edged sword as well, because it removes it from the human element, but as well it does, the special effects are, it's an improvement over Batman and Robin, but it can kind of remove you from the scene a little bit if it's overdone.
I would agree with Kate there. I think back to the 1978 Superman, the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner film, and even though the special effects aren't as seamless as the CGI of Man of Steel, I would take the sort of muted elegance of Christopher Reeves over the kind of thunderous digital onslaught of Man of Steel any day of the week. And the kind of that idea that Marvel have a human element, it kind of stems really from the comics. The DC characters were created in the late 30s, early 40s, and the Marvel heroes like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and so on tended to emerge in the 1960s. And there was an attempt to bring, again, that kind of innovation to the genre. If Batman and Superman in their 40s incarnations were kind of whiter than white, these were heroes with problems, equally cursed and blessed by their newfound abilities. And that sort of tension gave them nuance and really that carries through to the movies.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. Honestly, I've never found an issue with DC not being as humorous, especially with someone like Batman, who's not meant to be a funny character at all. My final question for today is, why do you guys both think that superhero movies are so popular in pop culture? I'll start off with you, Liam.
There's a number of reasons for that. There's a wish fulfillment element. The superhero's alter ego, the mild-mannered version, is a great kind of identification figure for the audience. And then you can imagine becoming the indestructible Man of Steel or the Wonder Woman or whatever it might be. Also, they have cross-generational appeal. These characters have existed in one format or another for 75-plus years, which means that they sort of appeal to not just kids, but their parents and indeed also perhaps their grandparents. And kind of beyond that, there is sort of this push from the studios and their parent companies, which are huge conglomerates like the Walt Disney Company and Time Warner, to have spreadable content that works not just as a movie or a TV show, but a movie, TV show, a game, a theme park ride, a mobile phone app, and characters like superheroes with their readily identifiable icons and heightened fantastical settings lend themselves to many media platforms, and they become the ideal transmedia anchors for a company like Time Warner or the Walt Disney Company.
I agree with what Liam said, and part of me wants to say it's that a lot of comics have those relatable villains in them. I think, with the rise of social media and globalization, I think moviegoers kind of find it dishonest to go to a movie where there's clean-cut good and bad guys. People want a bit more of a story spread there.
So, thank you for explaining that. I thought you meant like they find related to the villains. I'm like, that's a bit weird.
I'm thinking more like villains like Magneto, who's, a victim of xenophobia and oppression and all the rest of it. And you can see his story from going from a victim to somebody who's almost describable as an anti-hero, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's why I think it's also very popular, because everything's relatable,
Yeah.
People relate with the struggles of Loki. I don't know if you've seen the Thor movies, but yeah, the struggle of Loki and his non-being acceptance, to Magneto. Thank you very, very much for coming on today.
No problem.
After this, I'm going to go through my own Suicide Squad review. But yes, thank you to Kate and Liam for coming on. Hope you both enjoy your day.
Great, thank you.
You are listening to 90.7 Swinburne on Sin. You're listening to Swinburne on Sin 90.7. And then once again, a special thanks to Swinburne University Media Course Director Liam Burke and also Kate Moxon for their opinions on the take of superhero movies in pop culture. Sticking on the title of superhero movies, The Suicide Squad, which is the third cinematic universe in the DC form of superhero movies. It's a movie directed by David Ayer and it stars Will Smith as Deadshot and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. This movie is about a whole bunch of supervillains teaming up because of the government to fight bad guys. And the whole reason they're teaming up is to fight villains that, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they're not powerful enough for them to fight, and if something goes wrong, the government can just blame the superhero movies. So the movie kicks off a few months after Superman dies in the event of Batman vs Superman. Amanda Waller, who's played by Viola Davis, is trying to convince the government to form a team full of the worst of the worst. Personally for me, I wasn't the biggest fan of this movie, as you'll hear by my review, but I did think the first act was really good. It took a while to set up the characters, which you need to do because none of them have been seen before, with small backstories. I also found that all the jokes hit the mark, and I thought Will Smith and Margot Robbie was really good in their characters, as well as Jai Courtney, who plays Captain Boomerang. But to me, the movie does have a big issue. Firstly, the villain in this movie was way too powerful for a bunch of just normal humans to fight. You would think a movie with human villains fighting another villain would be, a normal person. No, it was a god that they had to fight. And the thing is, the two powerful characters, El Diablo and Killer Croc, who were both in the Suicide Squad team, really didn't have anything to do with the movie, even though they were the two strongest. Which leads me to my second point. The movie should have been called Deadshot and Harley Quinn with Friends, as Will Smith's Deadshot was the character who had every big line in the movie and every big action scene, while Margot Robbie was the centre of attention as well, while all the other characters felt left out. Also, talking about big characters, the Joker, who they used for all the promotional material for this movie, was only in it for around 5 seconds. Sorry, 10 minutes. But Jared Leto said in interviews that most of his scenes have got cut. I also found the Joker and Harley's relationship to be too PG, too family friendly. If you're anyone who reads the comics or watches cartoons, the Joker's a bit abusive towards Harley Quinn, as he's unstable, no one can fix him, and it made the Joker's character seem way too human, something the Joker actually isn't. Which for me, as who loves the Joker, really found that I didn't like it. And one of the biggest things was towards the end of the movie, a certain character, if you haven't seen it, did something in the movie that really it felt out of place. It felt like they wanted him in the final shot of the movie, so they just shoehorned him back in, but it didn't feel right. I found the movie way too choppy. Some scenes, it just feels like you can tell there was reshoots, because I did reshoot it after the events of Batman vs Superman. But I did find some positives though. I did find it very funny at times, and I thought it's probably one of the best out of the 3 DC Extended Universe movies so far, which is Batman vs Superman, which came out this year, and Man of Steel, which came out in 2013. Overall, I thought Suicide Squad is a good time despite its flaws. Something I will get on when it comes out on DVD, but that's maybe because I like collecting stuff. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it does show the DC Universe does have a good future, and hopefully it's on the right track. Hopefully next year's Wonder Woman and the Justice League, which is long anticipated and will probably be seen by millions and millions of people, will be good. Now, I'm going to go to a song and we'll swap universes and we'll talk about Spider-Man Homecoming, the newest Spider-Man movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which a character has fallen into criticism for the most silliest of reasons. I'll talk to that after this. You're listening to Swinburne on Sin 90.7. You came for, and I'll never understand why DJs get credited for songs they just make the beat for, but then I'm not really into the music industry anyway, so yeah. This is Swinburne on Sin 90.7. This is Liam O'Grady. I'm going to talk to you about everything superhero movie and superheroes related. A big issue has come out this week for the MCU movie Spider-Man Homecoming, which is the third version of Spider-Man in the last 20 years, and the first one with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Spider-Man Homecoming is directed by John Watts and stars Tom Holland as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Also has the original Batman, Michael Keaton, as the villain, the Vulture, and also has Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. But none of them is this big issue that I'm talking about at the moment. The biggest issue for many people is the casting of Zendaya. She is rumoured to be Spider-Man's love interest, Mary Jane Watson. And for me, I'm not fussed by the choice. You know, I've watched the Disney Channel show Shake It Up, and I quite enjoyed the show. Towards the decline of Disney Channel, in my opinion. But I thought Shake It Up was a good show. But other people, it's not about her acting abilities why other people don't want her to be Mary Jane. It's the fact that Mary Jane is white-skinned and Zendaya isn't. And I think it's the stupidest reason why someone shouldn't be cast. But on the bright side, most of the comments on social media, as Twitter, Facebook, and that, is just saying that she can't play Mary Jane Watson because she's in the right colour. But I did come across one tweet the other day, and made me question humanity. If Zendaya can play Mary Jane Watson, then we can make a movie about Martin Luther King and cast a white guy. I think people need to learn that Mary Jane Watson is a fictional character. If someone wants to draw her with 3 eyes, they can create Mary Jane Watson with a 3rd eye. The best example of this is Iris West from the DC universe, has been both white and dark-skinned throughout her history. At the moment on the TV show The Flash, she's dark-skinned. There was a cartoon movie a few years ago where she was white-skinned, and I find it weird that people are complaining over an actress just because of her skin colour. I would understand if her character had to be that skin colour, like the second Spider-Man, Miles Morales, whose main character arc is that he's an African American, or Black Panther, who's also an African actor, or if they cast Black Widow as a guy. Those issues I do understand, but just a normal 19-year-old girl who happens not to be a white-skinned actress being criticised for playing a fictional character. The Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn tweeted, "If you're complaining about the ethnicity of Mary Jane, your life is too good." And with that, I 100% agree. Well, I think we have a bit more problems in the world than the skin of an actress. Well, that's all I've got to say about the Spider-Man Homecoming at the moment. Spider-Man Homecoming is released in July of next year, and it will be the 16th Marvel movie. And after this, I'm going to talk about something I like, because I've been a bit negative at the moment when it comes to superhero movies. I actually do quite enjoy superhero movies. Listening to Swinburne on Sin 90.7. Before I go, I'm going to talk about something about the superhero universe that I do love, and it's something that makes me happy. It comes when they promote the movie. It's a really good scene with Ryan Reynolds when he promoted the movie Deadpool. All his tweets, all his interviews, every time he made a celebrity appearance, he did it as Wade Wilson, as Deadpool. He didn't do it as Ryan Reynolds, which is a good way to get, especially casual fans, a closer look at the character. During Batman vs Superman and Civil War, both Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck did all their promotion as Superman and Batman, while Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. did all their promotional material as Captain America and Tony Stark. And as I said, I thought that was really good. It's good for the kids. It's good to see your favourite actor play that big superhero that you love. And that's why we all love superhero movies at the end of the day, is because it gives it that bigger world. You know, you could be cramped up in school and homework or life problems, and then you go to the movie and you see this larger-than-life character fighting the bad guys, doing the good deed, and it gives you hope. It gives you hope in life. That's a wrap for my show today. I would like to thank again Liam Burke and Kate Moxon for coming on and talking about superhero movies in pop culture. Hopefully they don't go away anytime soon, because I still enjoy going to the movies every time seeing it. I've seen Suicide Squad twice and I don't really even like the movie. That's how I feel about the movies. You are listening to You're listening to Swinburne on Sin 90.7.